Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from your lunch break. We are about to dive into an intriguing session on orality, digital technology, and archiving, featuring a hybrid and live group discussion. Our esteemed discussants for this session are Dr. Shuba Chri, who joins us virtually from the American Institute of Indian Studies in Gurugram, Jaramdi Wati Longchar Ao, an Ao Naga ethnomusicologist from Goldsmiths, the University of London, who has been actively involved in preserving and documenting Nagaland's folk music tradition, and finally Dr. Wichamdinbo Mataina, an assistant professor at Tetso College with a deep commitment to language preservation and documentation. Guiding this enlightening discussion will be our moderator, Mr. L. Somi Roy of the Imasi Foundation. So get ready for an engaging exploration at the intersection of orality, technology, and cultural preservation. Please give them a warm welcome. Mrs. Somi, could you kindly come and take a seat? And Mr. Wicham, we would like you to be present here, please.
Good afternoon. This is Somi Roy from
Hi, can people hear me?
Vinodini Foundation.
Okay.
Can you hear?
I'm not sure if
hear anything else.
Yeah, I can't hear anything, so I'm not sure who's supposed to start. Sorry.
Who's talking to me? Okay. So, hi Shuba.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Hello, Shuba.
There's a lot of echo, like 5-6 echoes. Can't
Okay,
really make out.
we all need to. Hi, Jaramdi. Dr. Longshore. Hello.
Hello, hi.
Yeah. Can you turn off your microphone when you are not speaking? Yeah. And the same goes for you, Shuba. Right? Okay. Are you still hearing the echo? No? Okay. So, this is a topic. This topic for this session is something very close to my own interests. It's on orality, digital technology, and archiving. And we have also Dr. Mataina from our own Tetso College joining us. And so what we're going to do is, we're going to start with the person who's going to be our lead discussant, Dr. Shuba Chri from the American Institute of Indian Studies in Gurgaon. And then she will share her thoughts on a range of topics and subjects of orality, technology, and archiving. And then after which We will have Dr. Jeremdi make a presentation on PowerPoint, and then we'll have a discussion with you. So I will just try to make sure that things go smoothly. Immersive Foundation is one of the producers of the Listener Nagaland, along with Media Management Group for Literacy and Development, my friend over here. And then we have we have Sanjeev Bihari, a senior consultant, working with us in New Delhi. And we're all coming together with around Intact Nagaland, where our festival director, Sentila Younger, is the convener. So why don't we then, may I request Shuba Chri to share a few thoughts about orality, digital technology, and or archiving, wherever your interests lie and where you see the contribution can be made to the discussion of oral literature in India and in particularly in the northeast of India.
Thank you very much, Shobi. I was given to understand you're going to be asking me a lot of questions. So I would just like to make an opening statement. First of all, I'd like to thank Sentila and the other organizers for having me here. I would have loved to be in Dimapur, and maybe there'll be another occasion. I have visited Nagaland only once and have great respect and admiration for the wonderful oral traditions and the music especially, which is my area. To introduce myself, I work for the Archives and Research Center for Ethnomusicology, which is part of the American Institute of Indian Studies, as Shumi said. But just to make clear where my major interests lie. So we have two people from ethnomusicology in this panel. I think that I'm really interested that orality has taken the forefront in this panel, at least, because all our performing traditions, a lot of our literary traditions in India are all oral traditions. And I think that we underrate oral literacy a great deal when we say that there's a level of literacy, because the amount of knowledge there is in the oral literature area, whether it's songs, it's poetry, it's other forms of what is being called folklore, which I don't quite like, is really such a very, very rich area. And it is threatened today as the oral transmission is going down and endangered due to a lot of reasons, as we all know, I'm sure. So, coming from the area of audiovisual archiving that I do, I feel that recording then becomes one of the only ways we have of capturing this oral literature, the memories that people have, the repertoire that is orally transmitted. And we cannot prevent things from dying, in the sense we cannot prevent people from not wanting to sing songs or not carrying out certain rituals. But at the very least, we can record and document very clearly, not just record, but document the context, why things happen, where they happen, involving the communities that are the bearers of this tradition as much as possible. And that may be one of the ways that people can, at a later stage at least, find out what their traditions were. And hence, working in the field of archiving, I feel positive at least about that we're not able to stall change, but we're at least able to record and preserve and make it available to other generations, make it available to scholars, such as we have on our panel, make it available to those who are interested. To do this successfully, I feel today that we have to work in a way that we haven't worked before. I think a lot of our documentation projects, well-meaning though they have been very top-down in approach. And unless we work very closely and let communities lead how they wish to be documented, how they wish to be archived, what their knowledge is encapsulated, and they lead with their knowledge, we will not produce material that is of long-lasting value. The UNESCO 2003 Convention for Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage has also increasingly been going in the direction of community-based inventory, community involvement, community respect and recognition. I think that is the direction that our work in archiving, our work in documentation should be taking. Coming to digitization, which is one of the topics, well, digitization has been a boon, and like a lot of things, a double-edged sword, because of course it has made it very much easier to record. It's become a lot cheaper also. It makes it possible for us to distribute equipment in areas that we may not have been able to do before. The mobile technology has made people very aware of how to use such tools. In fact, many places the mobile phone itself serves as recording equipment. And so it's made it very easy and much more accessible. Digital technology makes it easy to share, makes it easy for us to publish on the internet, makes it easier for niche audiences to access from otherwise remote areas like many areas in Nagaland. So, but the same thing, the ease itself also creates its problems, that we are not able to control access so easily. It's very hard to prevent sometimes unethical use, illegal use of things. It's very easy to exploit materials commercially without due process, without correct ethical values being applied. So there are those issues that come up, but digital technology is part of our lives now, and we have to learn to deal with it rather than to look at what's wrong, but take advantage of it to the best extent that we can. So these are just a few thoughts with which I wanted to open, and Shomi, I look forward to your other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. Thank you, Shuba. This is probably a good time for me to also acknowledge and thank the archival partner of the listener, which is Corsal, the University of North Texas, outside of Dallas. So it's about computational resources on South Asian languages, and we started a listener festival collection after the previous festival in February of last year in Delhi, so this year in Nepal. And then, so in absentia, we thank them. We will continue to archive at Corsal, and more about that later because Dr. Bataina has also been working at Corsal. In the meantime, thank you, Shuba. And can we go to Dr. Jaremdi now? And I think we have a PowerPoint, do we not, from you?
Yes, so I'm going to try and share from my screen, but just in case that doesn't work, I have emailed someone at the team.
Thank you.
Am I okay to start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hi, just a quick clarification. I'm not Dr. Longchar. I just did my master's, so I just want to quickly clarify that. Thank you so much for having me on here today. I'm really grateful to Dr. Scintilla Younger and the team for asking me to join you today. I'm just going to talk very briefly about my work in ethnomusicology and what I have done to try and document the oral tradition of the Naga tribe. So that's the tribe I belong to, and since 2015, I have been studying and documenting the folk music tradition of my tribe, and since then I've been continuing to do so. Past 2 years or so, I took a little bit of a hiatus from my work, but I'm glad to be finally coming back to it now, and this festival is such a wonderful opportunity to talk about my work and about why oral traditions and archiving them is so important, especially in this age of digital media. For me, and I'm sure for a lot of people of my generation and the younger generation, I didn't grow up with the knowledge of our folk song tradition. I didn't really know much about it. I didn't appreciate it growing up. And it was only when I ventured into the field of ethnomusicology and began to study of our folk music tradition that I began to really understand the cultural and historical significance of these songs and the wealth of information contained in them, and especially in the song lyrics, and the chance to learn our ancient tunes from oral historians in the villages was incredibly invaluable for me to experience my own tribe's history in a very meaningful and personal way. Now, in terms of the documentation that I've done, over the course of the field, over the years, I have accumulated a large number of Naga folk songs from different villages because that's the area I specialize in. And I have perhaps close to 100, and I've transcribed maybe 20 or 25 of those. And music transcription for me, like in addition to audio recordings and video recordings, like Shuba has mentioned, for me transcription is also a great means of documenting the tradition that we have. For me, whilst I was documenting, it just gave me such a better understanding of the songs, the form, the structure, the harmony and everything, and just notating them allowed me to just look at the different folk songs that I'd collected from different villages, compare them. I was also able to see a lot of similarities and variations in the songs themselves. For example, if I can share my screen, I'm just going to share with you these two songs that I've collected from Longcombe village in Mokcho and also Mokunchukit village. And these are two cup violin songs from two different villages. So I'm just going to share. Is everyone able to see this? Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, thank you. We're able to see it quite clearly.
Yeah, great, thank you. So this is the first song that I collected from Longcombe
Sorry,
village.
you might want to go to the slideshow because then we would see your main slide clearer. Right now we're seeing all the slides.
Yeah. I have clearly not done this in a long time because I don't know. Okay. So this is the first song that I collected from Longcombe village, and this is one of my transcriptions. I'm just sharing like a section of it. I'm not sharing the entire thing, but I'm just quickly going to play it. And after this, I'm going to play the folk song from Mokunchukit village. And these are both cup violin songs, sung by different singers. So this is the first one. So that's the first one, and now I'm going to play the second cup violin song.
We could not hear. Do you need to raise the volume? Could you replay it again?
Sorry, we could not hear the first sound.
Sorry, could you not hear it?
Sindhu, please send a message to her to replay it.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can hear you, but we couldn't hear the first sound.
Okay, let me just quickly try this. Can you hear it? hear it? Did that work?
Let's say feedback from the audience. Share the sound.
Okay. I'm just going to continue without
Okay.
the songs. I hope that's okay. But just to continue with what I was saying about oral tradition and with transcription and how it allows me to see similarities. So with the two songs that I just played, or rather showed you, having the transcription side to side just allows me to see like the shared melodic similarities, even though it's from different villages and sung by different performers. And it allows me to see how our folk songs themselves have evolved over time and how each performer interprets it. It allows me to follow the melodic shape of the song, see the variations within the songs themselves, and how just the very same song has evolved over time, and as they move, they change, but it's not beyond recognition. It still maintains the basic structure, the integrity. Now in notating, orally transmitted music like I've done, I'm not saying that writing this music down in the Western music notation is superior or is that free from the variance that exists within oral music itself. Because I'm notating everything that I hear, it's from my own perspective and from my own understanding of my music culture that I'm transcribing. So I'm sure if someone were to come in and listen to the same song and notate it, there might be some variation and the other person may hear something that I may not hear. And that just leads to my second reason for transcribing, is that it just allows for an exchange of musical ideas, for analysis of our music, and something I don't think a lot of us do with our Naga music tradition. It just serves as a gateway for us to understand and unravel the complexities of our own music, and we can use these transcriptions as a foundation for arranging, adapting, and reimagining our own music. And the third and main reason that I want to transcribe our music is that, doing my research, I was barely able to find any transcriptions of our songs. I was able to find songbooks which had the song lyrics in them, but obviously there is no music attached to it, so I wasn't able to obviously figure out a tune. I had to get in touch with people, go traveling to villages and sit down with folk musicians and oral historians to record. And that is something which I absolutely love to do. That is my work. But I also am aware that, having the time and resources to be able to do something like that is something not everyone can do. And, a lot of these older generation who know these songs, some of them are forgetting the songs, some of them have passed away. So what happens then when these tunes are completely lost to us? So that's the main reason why I am transcribing these songs. I'm working on them. It's to preserve them, it's to make these songs accessible for researchers, not just from our community, but like outside researchers as well, for the transmission, for my generation, for future generations. And it's just a way to supplement the oral tradition that we have to help in the preservation process. There are a lot of other transcriptions that I have of our folk songs, like lullabies, children's folk songs, which are incredible. And I'm working on them and hoping to share it with the public soon. And in terms of like digital archiving, I've been working on a small project of mine for the last 1 or 2 years, and I'm yet to release that, to make that public. And the reason I've delayed it touches a lot on what Shuba said about, ethical values and things like that. Just making sure that when I finally put my work out there, that it also respects the people who I got the songs from, that respects my community, and just making sure that I do it in a way that is very ethical and respectful of my culture. Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Mataina, could you please share your thoughts about recording? Do you also record music? Do you transcribe it? How does your archive work? It was fascinating to hear you talk about the Northeast Indian Archive at Teta College that you started. We're very eager to hear more about that with reference to what Jarandi and Shuba also just said. Thank you.
Okay, so talking about NIPA, we are not at the stage of transcribing or technically called annotation, where you have to translate and even each word, each syllable, each morpheme, so that with that, somebody can write a grammar later on, somebody can write a dictionary later on. But we are going, that will be step 2. The first thing at the moment we are doing is we collect data and we give the metadata. What is metadata? Is it's basic information about an information. Information about an information. So like who is the singer, the date of recording, the place of recording, and like a little description of that thing, so that somebody can take that one and carry on further research with that materials. So that's how we are doing at the moment.
Have you started making the metadata in your collection?
Yes, very much. Please, I request all of you to explore our site, our archive, and you will see a lot of things. So there are models actually like the Dublin IMDI, the metadata format, but ours is like a hybrid and mixed kind of thing, customized for our situation.
Who gets access to your archive?
It is open access. Anybody can do that. Yeah.
Do you have any linkages with other archives so there can be cross-searching of
Pardon me?
items? Do you have any links with other archives in India or abroad so you can do a cross-search of items? Can you do that with your archive?
At the moment, not formally, but then the moment we launched yesterday, I shared on my profile and all. So it is being recognized by the stalwarts in this field across the globe. So they are sharing on their page themselves. So that is happening. So hopefully we will try to explore collaborative work with other people. And this morning, Principal Dr. Hosa assured me that she had a chat with Nagaland, somebody who is doing the same kind of work in Guwahati. So already started, those collaborations.
Well, congratulations for Nepal. I think it's a really amazing initiative you're spearheading at this point. Can you tell us talk a little bit about the oral technology you're using and what kind of oral technology do you think we ought to be concentrating on? What are the needs of Nagaland? What are the needs of our tribes and communities? What do you see as some of the challenges that are coming down the line for you?
Okay, so if we are to talk the relationship between documenting endangered languages and the technology, there are so many problems. So as you know, technology is like really dividing us today, the digital divide. If you look at Manipur now, they have no internet. Kashmir, they don't have internet, something like that. So for a poor community member like us, it's really difficult for us to access the internet or use the technological facility. And even if we look, going beyond that, if we look at the like AI and all, so they're going to be very unfair actually for the small language like ours. Let us bring it to one context here. So we have started welcoming the materials for NIPA. And maybe even among the Naga tribes, some tribes are a little advanced in literature and all. So the moment we did that, Ao and Angami, they sent a lot already, like 20. The rest, even 0. Now after 100 years or 50 years, if somebody searches about Naga thing of my mother tongue or somebody, they won't find anything about my stuff. They will find only like Ao or Angami or Bengali, what is being like more. Because AI work in the probability, they focus only on the history or something like that. So that is one challenges or concern I see if I have understood your question properly. So this is it. But then without technology, whatever so far we have been done would not have been possible. So I have been doing this one like for the last 13 years or 14 years. I did for my mother tongue, so my documentary materials can be found at Korsal, the one you have just mentioned. And also I had like a field linguistics experience working for Sherpa and Gurung in Gangtok. Anyone from Gangtok? Also, I work for Sherpa and Gurung, and then I work for Gary in Himachal Pradesh. All through, so today Professor Uma is here, so they train us while we are in CIL. And so because of all this, we are doing what we are doing. We could do what we are doing today.
I wonder if I can turn back to Shuba. Can you hear me, Shuba? Yes. Could you tell us about how are some of the methodologies you employ? How do you collect some of your archival material? Where is it stored? Who has access to them? Of your properties of music and ethnomusicology?
Thank you. And I would just like to begin by saying we'd be very happy to collaborate and be in touch with individual scholars like Janindi, as well as archives that we are talking about. We always have believed greatly in collaboration, and that's how we all grow and learn from each other. So, in terms of technology, Shomi, it's very different levels of technology that we can deal with for incoming material. So, there are today fairly, depends on the level of funding that you have for a project, the kind of equipment that you can provide in the field. But there's fairly reasonable, very good digital audio recorders available, and for a lot of our work, audio is good enough. I would, in fact, we go on, like to discuss about why Janandi feels that transcription is the only way to capture this and not recordings, which are much more accessible today, because they can, we don't just need access to the internet, as we can pass on digital technology very easily between phones today, or between, there is a range of access mechanisms available for recordings. And transcription is restricted to those who can read Western music notation, but that's an aside. So show me, it depends what is an affordable level. Today, people are making very good recordings even on mobile phones. Now, that's not something I would recommend, but there's a range of digital technology available for recording. So when we have had good funding, the archive itself owns pretty high-end digital technology with good microphones and so on. But all the incoming, we as an archive are a repository. We take in collections made by people in the field, and we preserve them and make them available to scholars and communities, or whoever is our rightful access partners. So we do not insist that you have to have this or that kind of recording for it to be brought in. We take in a great deal of analog material even now, which we digitize for the sake of preservation and storage. What we do is, in terms of physically, if you're asking, Shomi, we have our own servers on a RAID array where we create backups, and we have today about 70 terabytes of audio and video recordings in the archives. Now, how is it accessible? For every collection that we take in, we enter into an agreement wherein the person depositing, the scholar, person, whoever is working on it, gets to choose the degree of access they wish to give. They may want to totally restrict it for a short period. They may make it available only for listening within the premises of the archives, or we might have permission to make it available for research and teaching purposes only. Anything out of that we do purely by taking permission. So our laws since 1997 have brought in something called the performer right. So without the performer's explicit permission, we would not like to make materials available. However, for teaching, classroom use and research, it does not need the performer permission, but we do try and get it in all cases. So we are working on putting our catalog online. but we will not put the whole archive online because we will simply not have the rights to be able to do so and to be able to ensure that the right kind of use is made. It's also not very practical in terms of space and managing such large online digital repositories. For example, I'm sure we are all used to saying, knowing, say, song sessions that may go on all night. You have rituals that go on all night. Are you telling me somebody is going to sit online and listen to 8 hours of streaming video? It's not going to happen. So, but people do come in, if they want to come in to the archive and work on it, yes, they do very often. When you're a researcher, you want to do that, then you will sit and listen for a whole week if you need. And of course, we have been working, show me to tell you, we've been working on several projects of late where we are trying to give recordings from the archive to the community, to the performers or their families, or to the community, because that's one of the ways that older material can go to revive traditions within a performing community. So that's a kind of summary. I hope that works.
That is fascinating. In fact, at the last Listener in Impal in February, we had a session on intellectual property rights when it comes to traditional heritage and resources. We realized that it is an ongoing discussion that is being held among archivists and librarians and scholars all over the world. It's a very important topic. Who belongs to whom? What do these materials that we're recording so assiduously and cataloging and preserving, who do they belong to? So there's some of these questions. How do you deal with some of these questions, Jeremdi? What is the state of, like at Goldsmiths, for instance, in London, in terms of study of music and transcription? Do you really need to do transcriptions? Can we just go by recordings of music? Do you have applications that will turn the music into transcriptions automatically? How do you handle the collection of songs when you go back to Nagaland? What does the community think about you? There's so many questions I want to ask you. Pick and choose. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those questions. So I left Goldsmiths 2020, so that's where I did my master's, and right now I'm just an independent researcher. Just to quickly go back to Dr. Shuba's question on the transcription. So when I'm talking about them, I'm not in any way saying like these are superior to the recordings that we have. This is just a way for me personally as a musician, because I have been trained in the Western musical, like classical tradition, so it just helps me understand it better as well. And when I've been to the villages, excuse me, a lot of people obviously grew up in the church, and there are folk musicians who now know the Western music notation. So when I show it to them, they're like so excited that the music that they're singing, the music that has been passed down orally, is actually being preserved in that kind of form. And that's something new for them. So it's just a way for me to have something tangible to show them as well. Because like Dr. Mataina, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, like he said, sometimes all of these digital mediums that we have are not accessible to people in remote villages. It's just not something that's possible for them. Even for me, sometimes to be in touch with, I'm all the way here in London, and for me to get in touch with someone from the village, it's just really difficult for me to constantly keep in touch. So it's just having something like this, having these transcriptions, something that they can see, and they can see that this is something that they've contributed to, is just very, for me, I found very encouraging for them as well. Sorry, what was the other question?
So many questions. I'm fascinated by your involvement and your work with the community. I find it's very respectful of the people that you are gathering information from. And I think Dr. Mataina is also doing the same thing among his Liangmei tribe in Nagaland. And yes, it's important to show people what you're doing with its transcriptions, bring back the recordings, and do you see this as a way of recording it for the future? And also, how do you see people using it to continue their traditions and the practice of their traditions in the future? How would we promote this? What do you think? Tell us what we should also do for you.
So was that question for me or for Dr. Shuba?
For you, and then we'll go to Dr. Matana and answer the same questions after this. The community, your responsibility. We talk about ethics of collecting, intellectual property rights, the continuation of tradition. We are assuming this is all very good. How do we help this process along? So that you can answer that, Jarendi.
If I can just come in
Sure.
while Jerendi is thinking about it. First, I'd like to apologize, Jerendi, for not thinking. Obviously, Nagaland is very different from many parts of the country where there is so much training in Western music. And yes, the churches are big centers for people to know notation, which is not there in many parts of the country. So yes, you have a different situation, and I can see the value of what that would be. Shumi, you've talked about rights. Now, you see, the issue is when you're saying who does it belong to, I think that's a wrong way to look, because belonging is some very, it's a catch-all term. So nothing belongs to anybody, really. So who does the recording belong to is different from who does the tradition belong to. Who has the right to pass it on? Who has the right to perform it? Who has the right to publish about it? How do they publish? How do you use it? With keeping the respect, keeping the context of what are the customary rights. So there are so many issues. It's not like who does this belong to. A recording can belong to one person. The music itself doesn't belong to any one person. It belongs to a community. Does a community want to share? How do we say community? Again, it's not a monolith. All ours are not going to have the same opinion. So that is what makes all this very naughty. And I think the way forward is to be conscious. The way forward is to make sure we respect, is that we have consciousness about this, and we try to document everything that we're doing so that we're very clear, we're very transparent and honest. Laws will change and the situation will change, but we can go forward as long as our intents are correct, to the extent possible, and they will be constantly changing. I just wanted to share one small experience of working in Nagaland. I visited Pek and with a young couple who'd been working there and part of this Uramili project, and came across this group who just formed the Chakasar Cultural Preservation Society. And I was so impressed with what they were trying to do that I had a grant at that point. I have given them a digital audio Zoom recorder, which makes very good digital audio stereo recordings, a camera, a digital camera, and a rather ancient laptop that I was able to buy personally. So that, because without a computer you can't deal with digital media, because they were so keen, why can't we record our own traditions? So I did manage to get this and hope that this will start a small archive in Pek. But these are what happens with community dynamics, to be very blunt. Nothing has really moved on from there, is from what I understand. So what we were able to record, the little bits, it's been used in a very beautiful documentary, Up, Down and Sideways. We have a little bit in our archive. We are publishing some of it on Folkways Smithsonian, with revenue going back to them of 1/4. But it's a very, very tiny little thing. But, so I thought that one of the ways is for us to empower the communities to themselves document and record. I still believe it, even if my very tiny, whatever attempt, in fact, hasn't really borne fruit up to now. Who knows, it may in the future. So that is my contribution to this discussion.
Thank you very
my own
much.
little experience in Nagaland. So over to you, Jay.
Not just to the discussion, but to the field. Dr. Mataina, could you talk a little bit about some of the issues we're discussing about the community, ways of access, giving access,
Okay, so
intellectual property rights?
ethics, intellectual property right. I think when it comes to those traditional materials, it's really controversial. So according to Indian intellectual property right, it keeps on changing. Somebody wrote something, till 60 years he has the right, but after he died, something like that, it belongs to nobody anymore. Like our traditional songs and all, actually it does not belong to anyone, but then it's to the community. But then if the community said it belongs to us, and if they want to keep it only with them, it's not going to work. So when we talk about language preservation through whatever means archiving, I think there are three important things: the community members, the government, and the experts or the advocates. Now, if we go to there's a big problem with this. You go to like Honomase, for example, you ask them to sing one song, they'll ask 500. So the challenge is, something like that. So now, not talking about the intellectual property right. Even to without that, without the support of that, you cannot do anything. But then if you say, because I'm a community member, I'm going to charge anything for you, again, that is also not going to work. So actually, this brings me to what I want to say something about like this. This morning, if you were in Banwang's lecture, he said he has given a problem. He got all the materials now. There's nobody to teach thing. I'll give one more problem. So this is I want you to picturize one thing. Next year in Dimapur, we are trying to open schools for every tribe. This is not real, okay, just imagination. So the medium of language instruction is going to be each of your tribe. We will teach physics, science, everything. Will you send your kids to our school or not? The medium of the language will be, instruction will be the mother tongue. Will you send to our school or not? I think most of you will say no, you won't send. You will send to Hindi international school, English medium school, something like that. I don't blame you. We all see. What about fishing? Will you continue to do the traditional fishing? Nobody will do to save the environment. You will use bomb or dynamite or something like that. You will continue to wear your traditional dress. Nobody will do. I don't blame you. We all like it, but then at the moment, what we have to worry is our belly. We are poor. We need to get job, money, or something like that. But meanwhile, our languages are dying. That is where archiving thing comes into picture. So that after 100 years, somebody can revive it. If you look at the Hebrew, 1,000 years, no more. Today it is like spoken again, like in Israel and all. It's because of the documentation or was archived before. So that's where I want to come back to our archive thing. So this is, there are two things, like I said. You have lots of photos, audios and all in your phone now actually. But if somebody comes and sees it, he won't get any idea what is that photo is about. So at least you have to give information about that, description, who did all those things. That is number one thing. Number two thing is, this is purely for linguists, for transcription, the one you were asking before. So at NIPA, we are at the moment, before all the language dies, we want to keep it. Now that's why, coming back to the main question. So in our archive, we have like NIPA policy. Somebody who wants to use our material, it is open. So they have to cite the performer, the native speaker who performed it, as per the academic standards they are following. They have to give it the person who is doing the recording. He's called as creator now. And the third one is the college, the publisher. See, the college has spent lots of resources like involvement of the computer guy, the linguist, so many things. So those things should be like acknowledged kind of thing. So it is really a little bit complicated, like who owns the property of that when it comes to like the materials of the endangered language. So
I think we have just maybe time for one or two quick questions. Does anyone have a question or a comment? And please tell us who it is directed to of the four of us. Anyone? Okay. So, how about if, Jaremdi, I think I cut you off. Any last thoughts that you would like to share about the work that you're doing, where you want to take it to, and what it means for you and for your idea of Nagaland?
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, the work that I'm doing right now, as I said, I'm working on the transcriptions, and obviously it's taken, like I said, it's taken me a while to share it to the public because there's the whole thing about consent and making sure that the people I got the songs from are happy with it, for it to be represented in the way that I represent it. So there is a lot of dialogue going on, and it's something that I'm working on. I just want to say, like, this festival is just a great opportunity for not just for me to meet my fellow researchers and people as well, but also for the general public to just see how important archiving is in preserving our languages, in preserving our folk songs. And yeah, I think my future project would be, I'm working on folk songs for children, so kind of transcribing some of the folk songs I have into piano music and hopefully have a book out, and then children can explore our folk songs through that. And hopefully that will happen sometime in the future, but I just think introducing our folk songs to kids at a young age would be a great way just for community preservation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think this is, I mean, we could go on and on for hours. I'm just kind of feeling I'm getting warmed up right now. I really want to thank you all, Shuba and Jaremdi, Dr. Bataina. Perhaps we can continue this conversation since the listener is planned as a rolling festival, Maybe we should consider this an ongoing conversation because obviously, Dr. Bataina, you just started your archive. You know how long it's going to take for you to get this going, right? It's a lot of work ahead of you, right? So thank you very much, Shuba. Thank you, Jaremdi. I'm sorry we're a little out of time. And thank you, Dr. Bataina. And thank you all for coming. So, and here, over and out, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
What a fantastic session. And I'm so happy with all the initiatives that all three of them are taking in preserving our cultural heritage. And I really cannot wait to see what the future holds for them.